Man, if you had told Kid Me that this silly little SpongeBob game would not only get a remake when I'm an adult, but an actual follow-up that isn't the movie game, I wouldn't believe you for a fucking second. But I guess we're currently living in that reality. And not only can I not believe BFBB is getting a sequel, but that it looks this good. It's also probably coming out way later than I was expecting it to. I guess I didn't need to make these videos that soon, whoops. Also, I recommend watching part 1 of this short video essay series if you haven't already. It won't take you very long, it's only about 13 minutes, and by the time you're done this video will likely still be here. If you've already seen part 1, or just decided not to watch it for whatever reason, today I'll be talking about BFBB's often, well, not overlooked, but I want to say underloved sort of sequel. The movie game. I'm not even going to do a flashy intro this time, I'm just going to start talking about the game. Also, just to get out of the way, the plot of the game is the movie. If you really care about that, go watch the movie. You know, something I'm kinda sad that they didn't do as well as in BFBB, at least to me, is the character dialogue.
The weeping.
Lady, you must have been watching over someone else.
It's not bad, but it's just not as memorable. It probably doesn't help that the game only really has like 3 characters it can use for the most part, which are SpongeBob, Patrick, and Mindy, who they somehow managed to get Scarlett Johansson back for. I say somehow because this game's budget is clearly not very high. It reuses a lot from BFBB, and if you watched my TAC video, you know that I don't really mind that kind of thing since it gives devs a well-deserved bit of freedom. Also, go watch my fucking TAC video. Not only does it reuse so much from its predecessor, it's also just straight up unpolished. But I guess that's what happens when you're given a year, and probably less than that honestly, to make another SpongeBob game that's supposed to coincide with a new movie coming out. Weird how history repeats itself like that. There's a couple of weird visual and audio quirks too that, while I don't mind, definitely show off that aforementioned lack of polish. Stuff like how the upgrade menu straight up just has pop-in, seriously a menu with pop-in, what the fuck? Or how it'll play the same audio twice when you upgrade something. Or like this one cutscene where the audio had completely cut out and I thought it was an issue with my capture card when in reality it was just the game being weird and broken.
You're too late, SpongeBob! King Neptune is already at the Krusty Krab too. He's all...
To be fair, that last thing might just be because my disc is old and not in the best condition anymore. I don't know. Speaking of polish and cutscenes, what I'm showing you right now is not me trying to safely edit around copyright problems with still images from the movie. This is what majority of the game's cutscenes actually look like, Windows Movie Maker transitions and all. Yeah, there's no way this game had anything more than like a $2 budget. Thankfully, the polish issues don't really bleed into the gameplay, you know, the most important part of a video game. Although you could probably make a strong argument for that not being the case, but I don't care. It's been a while since I replayed this one as opposed to its sister game, which I've played a bunch, and honestly, I had a lot more fun 100%ing the movie game for this as opposed to 100%ing BFBB for the last video. There's really no annoying grinding, I think the enemies are better designed, and I even like all of the challenges, including the ones most people think are bullshit. I will say that the ring challenges could probably be better designed though, even if I still think they're fun. They often have a nasty habit of using trial and error and having some pretty strict reaction times. Luckily, they're not very long, and if they were, I'd probably start to dislike them for those very 2 reasons. I think the main problem with them could be easily fixed by just making the next ring visible before going through the current one. But even then, again, I don't really mind them much. The other type of challenge that tends to get under people's skin with this game are the timed ones, and I gotta be honest, I think they're my favorite challenges in the whole game. There's something about being forced to use almost speedrunner-esque techniques to complete these things with just a few seconds to spare sometimes. It's surprisingly exhilarating. Although, I gotta say, I'm never doing the dev time challenges. The times for those are insane. Tell you what's not exhilarating though, these combat arenas. They're just not good. Well, except the final one, which is just a great gag. I don't hate them, I'm mostly indifferent to them, but they do tend to go on for a bit too long, especially the later ones. I think they could have easily been more engaging if they didn't use the same flat area for every single one. Not only is it fairly samey, it also just doesn't really open you up for more interesting combat potential. It's a big shame too, because I really like how these enemies are designed. Each one of them is like if a couple enemies from BFBB got combined into a different, meaner enemy. I don't remember most of their names, there's no way to check outside of the manual like in BFBB as far as I'm aware, which I think was another missed opportunity because these dudes outside of that are fairly memorable. Well, I do remember one of their names actually. The Merv. My nemesis, my beloved, my curse. The Mervs are infamous. They are easily the meanest enemy in the entire game, and that's why at the very end of the final level they throw out not 1, not 2, not even 3, but fucking 7 of them. Whoever made that decision has a special place in hell. No, but for real, I actually love the Mervs, and overall just how mean the game is. It's like the devs are playing a prank on me, and I am 100% in on the joke, and I cannot help but have a smile on my face the whole time. And look, it's not like the Dark Souls of SpongeBob games, but actually the Cosmic Shake is gonna have a dodge roll, so I guess I don't know anymore, man. All that isn't to say you're helpless, though. SpongeBob and Patrick have some new and old tricks up their sleeves. Well, actually, SpongeBob is exactly the same as he is in BFBB with some minor visual changes to his moves. He can't ground slam either anymore, but whatever. With the removal of Sandy, someone else had to take the reign of swinging champion, and that is surprisingly Patrick. He can swing on ice blocks now instead of Texas hooks, and look, we're just gonna go with it because I have no more fucks to give. Patrick also gets a new move that is probably my favorite thing in the whole game. This spin is incredible. It makes Patrick faster, it makes him better for combat, and it makes my eyes bleed when fully upgraded. I really like that you have to think through what you should upgrade and when, because if you upgrade something too early, it can lead to certain challenges being a little harder. But if you upgrade too late, then you might have wasted a move's potential by doing so. The throw upgrade sucks ass though. I hate that even if you just tap the button to throw something lighter, it'll sometimes just do the super strong throw anyway. I always wait to upgrade this one until the last minute. Something of note about how this game paces itself is that it's much faster than its predecessor. It's also much shorter too, likely because of how little time they had to actually make the game. I honestly think this is a godsend though. The movie game is just the perfect length for me. It really doesn't feel like it's wasting my time, which BFBB could sometimes feel like it was doing, especially when going for 100%. I've started to realize while making these past couple videos on platformers, the TAC one included, what my specific preferred take on them is, and it's pretty clear to me now that what I want out of a 3D platformer most of the time is tight control, a fast pace, and some form of linearity. Games that focus on one or all three of those aspects unsurprisingly tend to be some of my favorites in the genre. And for all of that, I've come out of this experience so far surprisingly preferring the movie game over Battle for Bikini Bottom. Part of it could also be that I'm just likely burnt out on BFBB after all these years, and especially playing both versions back to back for the previous video. But I don't know, man, I've had more fun replaying the movie game than I've had with BFBB in a hot minute. Of course, I still love BFBB and have fun with it. I wouldn't have dedicated any time to making a video on it if I didn't. But man, was the movie game a nice breath of fresh air. Another thing I think the movie game does better than BFBB? The Sponge Ball. I talked about it a little in the previous video, but man did they really make this thing fun this time around. The challenges for it are specifically designed around the Sponge Ball's strengths, and they're all just super fun. Failing one of these challenges brings you back to the beginning of it, and that means once you've got the perfect rundown, it's super satisfying to finally execute it. Speaking of satisfying, bosses are back, and I think they're better. While BFBB had engaging boss fights, the movie game has engaging and difficult boss fights. My favorite of them all easily has to be King Neptune. This bastard will really test your platforming skill, especially when it comes to good timing on jumps. The music that plays while fighting him is also just a total banger. Speaking of bosses, you get to fight Dennis in this game, twice. Both fights are pretty fun, but that's actually not what I want to talk about in regards to this big-booted dude. Dennis in the movie is played by Alec Baldwin. I bring this up because I wouldn't blame you if you didn't notice he wasn't played by him in the game, too. But yeah, no, Dennis is played by a completely different person in the movie game, Fred Tatasciore, I hope I'm pronouncing that right, who's been in a shit ton of stuff, and his impression is nearly spot on. Seriously, you have to have pretty good ears to tell the difference.
Don't worry. This'll only hurt a lot.
Don't worry, this'll only hurt a lot!
Can we talk about the level design for a sec? I just want to explain to you how well laid out these levels are. And there is no better example than Planktopolis. The penultimate stage of the game, it's also the game's toughest challenge by far, at least on the platforming side of things. It's filled with nasty traps and tighter than normal jumps. It is a masterclass of linear level design, and I always look forward to it when returning to the movie game. It's really amplified by the game's perfect difficulty curve. The game starts easy enough and it gets harder and harder as it goes on, like any great platformer should. If BFBB's difficulty curve looks like this, then the movie games looks like this. And then you get to Planktopolis, where the game sure as shit is not holding your hand anymore. All capped off with this final room that houses multitudes of the game's hardest enemies, sinking platforms and conveyor belts all above a huge lava lake. This level wants you fucking dead, and it is not afraid to show it. Honestly, this game's level design alone steals the show. It is, in my opinion, perfect. There's nothing about it I'd change for any level. Also, we're getting close to the end here, so I'm gonna ramble off some final notes about the movie game before I get to my closing thoughts. I like that the game has a really well thought out fast travel system built into the menu. I know BFBB had this too, but I forgot to bring it up in the last video. I am genuinely surprised more platformers don't have a system like this. Enemy introductions are back, and they're just as solid and fun to watch as they were in BFBB. SpongeBob and Patrick have level-specific costumes, and that's really neat. The extras are kinda cool, I guess. I have barely anything to say about them. The PS3 version was so fucked I can't believe anyone even let it release in the state it was in. I like how, outside of one exception, the game doesn't feel like it's padding locations out just for the sake of it being a video game. The levels actually feel like nice compliments to the places we saw in the movie. I love the aforementioned time trials, but I do kinda wish that there were more interesting skips in them. The only one that really has notable ones is Rock Slide. I honestly think this game deserved a remake more than Battle for Bikini Bottom because, man, as much as I love it, it's super unpolished, like I said earlier. And finally, while I understand why people don't like the paddy wagon, it can be a little awkward to handle, I fucking love it to bits, and I think it's a great addition to the game. And now, on to my closing thoughts for this little mini-series, I guess. So, in recent years, I found a question tends to rattle around in my brain when I replay these games. And that question is, why do I still play these even though I don't watch nor invest myself in the property they're based on anymore? I mean, it usually sounds dumber than that in my head, but you get the gist. Anyway, that question is the main reason this video series even exists, as a sort of attempt to figure out what it is that keeps me coming back. And I think I figured it out. While I don't watch the show anymore and don't take part in any discussion of it and have no idea what any of this new spin-off stuff is or anything else, the simple answer is, I just think they're good games, for all of the reasons I've hopefully explained well enough throughout these 2 videos. And I gotta say, if these were all there was of that little yellow dude, I think I'd still love these games all the same. And I know, I'm biased, there's definitely nostalgia talking for a lot of this, I'm sure, but I don't think that really matters. Like, yeah, I have a very strong nostalgic connection to these games, but it's not like they're without merit. For God's sakes, I made 2 whole videos explaining why I love them so much. They can't all just be down to nostalgia, I think. But you know what? Fuck it. Even if it is just nostalgia clouding my vision and these games are actually poo-poo doo-doo shit, I'm still gonna love them and replay them anyway, because they're fun as hell to me. I also don't really know how to end this now, so go watch my fucking TAC video.